When Keanu Reeves walked into the principal's office with a $500,000 check in his hand, Principal Harrison looked up from his mahogany desk and sneered, "We don't need money from attention-seeking celebrities like you." But the principal was about to realize he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The morning sun cast long shadows across Jefferson High School's crumbling facade. The building, once a beacon of education in the community, now stood as a monument to neglect. Paint peeled from the walls, windows were held together with duct tape, and the gymnasium roof leaked so badly that basketball practice had been moved to the parking lot for 3 months. Inside the principal's office, Marcus Harrison sat behind his expensive desk, the only new item in the entire school. His tailored suit cost more than most teachers made in a month. He was reviewing the school's dire financial reports when his secretary, Mrs. Chen, knocked timidly on the door. "Sir, you have a visitor," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She had learned long ago that Harrison preferred his staff to be seen, not heard. "I don't have any appointments this morning," Harrison barked without looking up. "Send them away." "Sir, it's Keanu Reeves." Harrison's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. He knew the name, of course. Everyone did. The actor had been making headlines recently for his charitable work, his random acts of kindness going viral on social media. Harrison despised that kind of publicity. "The actor?" he asked with disdain. "What does he want?" "He says he'd like to discuss making a donation to the school, sir." Harrison leaned back in his leather chair, a calculating look crossing his face. On one hand, the school desperately needed money. They were $3 million in debt. Teachers hadn't received raises in 5 years, and the state was threatening to shut them down. On the other hand, Harrison had his own reasons for keeping certain financial matters complicated. "Fine, send him in, but make it quick." Moments later, Keanu Reeves entered the office. He wasn't dressed like a movie star, just a simple black jacket, jeans, and worn motorcycle boots. His hair was slightly disheveled from his helmet, and he carried himself with the quiet humility that had endeared him to millions. "Mr. Harrison," Keanu said, extending his hand. "Thank you for seeing me." Harrison didn't stand, didn't shake the offered hand. He simply gestured to a chair. "Mr. Reeves, I'm a busy man. What brings Hollywood to our humble school?" Keanu sat down, unbothered by the cold reception. "I recently learned that my niece Sarah is a student here. She's on scholarship. Her mother, my sister, passed away 2 years ago. Sarah told me about the school's financial situation, about how kids are sharing textbooks, how the heating barely works in winter." "Your niece?" Harrison's tone was skeptical. "I wasn't aware you had family in this area." "My sister lived quietly. She preferred it that way," Keanu replied softly. "But that's not important. What matters is that these kids deserve better. I'd like to help." Keanu reached into his jacket and pulled out a check. He placed it on Harrison's desk. The principal's eyes widened momentarily when he saw the amount, $500,000. "This is just the start," Keanu said. "I want to establish a fund for the school. New textbooks, building repairs, technology upgrades, whatever the students need." Harrison stared at the check for a long moment. Then his face twisted into an ugly smirk. He picked up the check, examining it as if it were counterfeit. "Mr. Reeves," he said slowly, "do you know what I despise most about people like you?" Keanu's expression remained calm, but his eyes showed confusion. "I'm not sure I understand." "Celebrities." Harrison spat the word like it was poison. "You swoop in with your cameras and your publicists, throw some money around, get your photo op, and then disappear. We don't need your charity. We don't need to be your feel-good story of the week." "There are no cameras," Keanu said quietly. "No publicists. I came alone." "Oh, please," Harrison scoffed. "You think I was born yesterday? Next week this will be all over the entertainment news. Keanu Reeves saves struggling school. We're not props for your image rehabilitation. Mr. Harrison, I assure you, no. Harrison stood abruptly, his face reddening. We have dignity here. We don't need handouts from actors playing hero. We don't need your pity money. With a theatrical gesture, Harrison took the check and slowly, deliberately, tore it in half, then in quarters. Then he dropped the pieces into his wastebasket. We don't need money from attention-seeking celebrities like you, he said with satisfaction. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have real work to do, work that doesn't involve photo opportunities. Keanu stood slowly, his face still calm, but his eyes now holding something deeper, not anger, but profound disappointment. Mr. Harrison, this isn't about me. It's about the students. The students are my concern, not yours, Harrison replied coldly. Mrs. Chen will show you out. As Keanu turned to leave, Harrison added one more barb. Oh, and Mr. Reeves, tell your niece that her scholarship is under review. We need to make sure all our scholarship students truly deserve to be here. Some of them, he paused meaningfully, might be better suited to public school. Keanu stopped at the door. He turned back, and for the first time Harrison saw something in the actor's eyes that made him slightly uncomfortable. It wasn't anger. It was determination. Sarah's mother died of cancer, Keanu said quietly. She spent her last months worried about her daughter's education. I promised her Sarah would have every opportunity to succeed. I keep my promises, Mr. Harrison. How touching, Harrison replied sarcastically. But promises don't pay bills. Now leave, before I call security. Keanu left without another word. Harrison sat back down, satisfied with himself. He had no idea that he had just lit a fuse that would explode his entire world. 20 minutes after Keanu left, Mrs. Chen knocked on the door again. Her face was pale. Sir, we have a problem. What now? Harrison snapped, still riding high from his confrontation. The State Education Board just called. They're moving up their inspection. They'll be here tomorrow. Harrison's smugness evaporated. Tomorrow? That's impossible. They said we had until the end of the month. There's more, sir, Mrs. Chen continued, her voice shaking. The local news station called. They're asking about our financial records. Someone leaked information about discrepancies. Discrepancies. Harrison's voice went up an octave. What discrepancies? Mrs. Chen looked at the expensive desk, the designer suit, the Rolex on Harrison's wrist. She said nothing, but her silence spoke volumes. Harrison's mind raced. The school was $3 million in debt, yes, but the books would show something else entirely. They would show that funds meant for student resources had been redirected. His house renovation, his car, his wife's shopping sprees, all paid for with money meant for textbooks and repairs. Get out, he told Mrs. Chen. I need to make some calls. But it was too late. Within an hour, Harrison's phone was ringing non-stop. The school board president, reporters, parents, everyone wanted answers. And then came the call that made his blood run cold. Mr. Harrison, this is Jennifer Walsh from the state attorney's office. We need to discuss some serious allegations about embezzlement. Meanwhile, Keanu Reeves sat in a coffee shop across from the school, talking on his phone. Yes, I understand. The evidence is clear? Good. And the emergency board meeting? Tonight at 7. I'll be there. He hung up and made another call. Hi, this is Keanu Reeves. I'd like to confirm the wire transfer. $3 million to the Jefferson High School Emergency Fund. Yes, it went through? Perfect. No press release. Anonymous donor, please. That evening, the school auditorium was packed. Parents, teachers, students, and media filled every seat. The emergency board meeting had been called with unprecedented speed. Principal Harrison sat at the front table, sweating profusely, his expensive suit now looking cheap under the harsh lights. The board president, Mrs. Rodriguez, stood at the podium. We're here tonight to address serious allegations against Principal Harrison regarding misappropriation of school funds. We've received evidence of systematic embezzlement spanning 5 years. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Harrison stood up. This is ridiculous. I demand to know who's making these accusations. The evidence speaks for itself, Mr. Harrison, Mrs. Rodriguez replied. Forensic accountants have been reviewing the books all day. Would you like to explain why $2.3 million meant for school improvements is missing? I can explain, Harrison stammered. Can you explain why you rejected a legitimate donation this morning? Mrs. Rodriguez continued. A donation that could have helped our students? Harrison's face went white. Can you explain why you threatened a scholarship student because you didn't like her uncle? Sarah, Keanu's niece, was sitting in the 3rd row, tears streaming down her face. She was a brilliant student, top of her class, despite working 2 part-time jobs to help with expenses. I move for immediate termination of Principal Harrison, board member Mr. Thompson announced. All in favor? Every hand went up. Mr. Harrison, you're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you out. The district attorney will be in touch regarding criminal charges. As security approached Harrison, he looked wildly around the room. This is a setup. That actor did this. Where is he? Where's Reeves? But Keanu wasn't there. He had no need to be. Justice didn't require an audience. Harrison was escorted out in handcuffs as the crowd watched in shocked silence. Then Mrs. Rodriguez spoke again. I have one more announcement. This afternoon, an anonymous donor paid off the school's entire $3 million debt. The auditorium erupted. Teachers cried, parents cheered, students hugged each other. Furthermore, Mrs. Rodriguez continued, this donor has established a $10 million endowment for Jefferson High. New textbooks, building repairs, technology, increased teacher salaries, everything Principal Harrison denied our children while he lined his own pockets. In the parking lot, Harrison was being put into a police car when he saw a figure leaning against a motorcycle. Keanu Reeves, helmet in hand, watching quietly. You! Harrison screamed. You did this! Keanu walked over slowly. No, Mr. Harrison. You did this. You stole from children. You denied them opportunities out of greed. I just made sure the truth came out. I'll sue you. I'll destroy you. With what? Keanu asked calmly. The money you stole? That's being returned to the school. Your reputation? That's gone. Your freedom? Well, that's up to the courts now. Keanu looked at the school building where students and teachers were streaming out, celebrating. You know what your mistake was, Mr. Harrison. You assumed my kindness was weakness. You thought publicity was my motivation, but you were wrong. He put on his helmet. I made a promise to my sister. Sarah would have every opportunity to succeed. And now, thanks to your greed being exposed, not just Sarah, but every student here will have those opportunities. As the police car drove away with Harrison in the back, Keanu started his motorcycle. Sarah ran out of the building and hugged him tightly. Uncle Keanu, how did you know about the stealing? Keanu smiled. I didn't, but when someone reacts that violently to kindness, they're usually hiding something. I just asked the right people to look in the right places. The donation. That was you, wasn't it? The donor wishes to remain anonymous, Keanu said with a wink. But whoever it was, they believe in you kids. They believe everyone deserves a chance. The next morning, Jefferson High School began its transformation. New textbooks arrived by the truckload. Contractors started repairs on the building. Teachers received notices of salary increases. And in the principal's office, the expensive mahogany desk was removed, replaced with a simple, functional one. The new interim principal, Mrs. Chen, promoted by unanimous board decision, hung a sign on her door. Every student matters. Every dream is valid. Every opportunity is sacred. Meanwhile, Marcus Harrison sat in a jail cell, his bail set at $2 million, money he no longer had. His assets were frozen, his house being sold to pay restitution. He had gone from the most powerful person in the school to a cautionary tale about corruption and greed. 3 months later, Jefferson High was unrecognizable. The building gleamed with fresh paint, the gymnasium had a new roof, and every classroom had modern technology. Test scores were up, teacher morale was soaring, and college acceptance letters were pouring in for seniors who thought they'd never have a chance. Sarah gave the valedictorian speech at graduation. She didn't mention her uncle by name, but she spoke about kindness, about standing up for what's right, and about how one person's generosity can change hundreds of lives. Keanu watched from the back row, unnoticed by most, just another proud family member. As Sarah spoke about second chances and the power of believing in others, he smiled quietly. After the ceremony, a reporter who had been investigating the Harrison scandal approached Keanu. "Mr. Reeves, I know you were involved in exposing Principal Harrison. Would you like to comment?" Keanu looked at the celebrating graduates, at Sarah hugging her friends, at teachers crying happy tears. "Sometimes," he said simply, "the best stories are the ones that don't need a hero. Just people doing what's right. These kids are writing their own stories now. That's all that matters." He walked to his motorcycle, leaving the reporter standing there. As he drove away, Sarah watched him go, knowing that her uncle had kept his promise to her mother in the most spectacular way possible. Marcus Harrison was eventually sentenced to 10 years in prison for embezzlement. The judge, while passing sentence, noted, "You had the opportunity to accept help, to do right by your students. Instead, you chose greed. You rejected $500,000 in charity and stole twice that amount from children. This court sees no reason for leniency." Jefferson High School went on to become one of the top schools in the state. A small plaque in the main hallway reads, "Rebuilt through anonymous kindness, sustained through community love." Keanu Reeves never spoke publicly about the incident. When asked in interviews about his charitable work, he would simply say, "Everyone deserves a chance to learn, to grow, to succeed. Sometimes we just need to remove the obstacles in their way." And Sarah? She graduated summa cum laude, went to medical school on a full scholarship, and eventually became a doctor. She specialized in treating children with cancer, inspired by her mother's battle and her uncle's lesson that one person really can make a difference. The school still receives anonymous donations every year. The checks always arrive on the same date, the anniversary of the day Principal Harrison tore up that first check. The memo line always reads the same thing: "For the dreamers. Some say they know who sends them." But in Jefferson High, they've learned that some gifts are more powerful when the giver remains in the shadows, their kindness speaking louder than any spotlight ever could.